Hi everyone, Kartik Krishnaiyer here for the Florida Squeeze. Wanted to talk real briefly about the Canada situation, Canada-US tensions ratcheting up. My experience, obviously, I worked almost exclusively in politics and government until 2006, but from that point on, I've been more or less in private sector business to have more of an understanding of the economy and economics than I did in those days. And the institutions, the not non-governmental institutions, NGOs, industry, manufacturing between the U.S. and Canada are all inextricably linked. It's basically like a confederation with two different countries within it, two different nation states within it, two nation states with dramatically different cultures now. Because, of course, if you live in Canada, you're probably going to live 4 or 5 years longer than you do in the United States. That's what all the metrics tell us. You're probably going to eat healthier. You'll probably have less of a chance of dying in a gun homicide. And you're probably in cities that are much, if you're in urban areas, you're in cities that are much cleaner and where transport is better. Although I don't think Canada, from a transport situation, is like Western Europe or like what I saw developing in India, my recent trip there, or what we know is the case in China and Japan. I mean, Japan, you don't need a car at all anymore in many ways, right? You can get anywhere by train. It's really, really amazing. But how is this going to affect Florida? So through my business work, through my work in soccer, I know dozens and dozens of Canadians that I call friends. Canadians are less likely, I'm seeing reports out there that Canadians are less likely to travel to the United States. I believe that, although my personal circle that I've talked to, they're not less likely to travel to the United States. They're less likely to travel to a red state in the United States. And what red state do they travel to the most? By far, Florida. As I've said before in some of my writing on the aviation industry, Orlando and Fort Lauderdale are generally two of the bigger stations for every international stations for every Canadian carrier. Outside of London Heathrow, or Paris, Charles de Gaulle for Air Transat, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, those are their two biggest international stations where they carry the most passengers back and forth to Canada. Tampa is generally in the top 5 or top 7 on that list also. Fort Lauderdale and Orlando will be 2 and 3 in whichever order behind London, and then Tampa's like in the top 7. Fort Myers sometimes is in the top 10. Miami is often in the top 15. So more Canadians come here than anywhere else in the United States. In terms of spending long-term time here, spending long-term money, that is going to be impacted. 100% going to be impacted. I'll tell you something else that's going to be impacted. Florida products going north of the border. Citrus, fresh fruits and vegetables. We don't manufacture. We're really at the bottom of manufacturing in the U.S. In spite of a lot of big talk from Rick Scott and other Republicans about increasing our manufacturing capacity. Maybe this is a time where that's good because there's going to be duties put on things coming into Canada. This is a very sad time from my perspective. Canadians and Americans are one people. I have more of an affinity as an American with Canadians than with any other culture of people. And that includes, I'm of Indian descent. That includes Indians, although there are tons of Indians in Canada, obviously. I feel closer to Canadians as an American than I do to any other group of people. And I'm an Anglophile, right? And so you would say, oh, you probably feel closer to the Brits. And maybe I do in a way. And I'm of Indian descent, so maybe you feel closer to them. But in terms of just in general, I feel closer to Canada than any other country that's not the U.S., and that's the case with a lot of people I know, and a lot of people in my circle. So I think this is going to be a very damaging spat that our president has begun, President Trump, and it's going to have incredible ramifications. Prices are going to go up. Products are going to be less available. There's going to be more acrimony. Having bad relationships with Canadians is not something that's in my wheelhouse. It's not something I'm going to abide by. I'm going to stick by them personally, but there's going to be a lot of problems going forward. I think just even from a cultural standpoint, the one positive thing about all of this is I think it's really kindled a fire in Canadian patriotism, because for those of you who don't know, Canada's federal system is even more We talk about states' rights in the U.S., right? It's even more provincial rights in Canada. And I've always felt like a lot of the Canadians I know are more Quebecois or Ontarian, or they feel like they're from the interior, from Manitoba or Alberta, more than they're Canadians. That's been something that I've always felt was an undertone in a lot of their identity. But I think now they're feeling very proud to be Canadian. So maybe that's something President Trump did right. Just thank President Trump for bringing them all together as a nation. Anyway, we'll keep you posted on this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support of the Florida Squeeze.